What's going on, people, and welcome back to the channel. I go by the name of Mr. Midas. Now, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe and don't let the YouTube algorithm bully you. Hit that bell. Now, today I'm excited. We are going to talk about some Final Fantasy 16. I have one of the co-owners of Arekkz Games. No, not the guy with the beard. I'm talking the guy with the amazing hair. Yes, he is a YouTuber, he's a Twitch streamer, and he is an all-round amazing guy. Man, like 269 in the building. Welcome to my channel.
How you doing, everyone? We are talking Final Fantasy today. I'm gassed. Like when Midas hit me up to say, "Oh yeah, we'll talk about Final Fantasy," I was like, "I gotta make time for this. Clear out the schedule. Talk to the homie about Final Fantasy. Gonna be a sick one." So yeah, I'm gassed.
Thanks so much for coming in. So really quickly, before we get into the depths of 16, let everyone know what your history is with the Final Fantasy franchise. I know how much you love the games, but just let everyone know your history with the titles.
I think it's like one of those anchor points. There's a couple of games that are anchor points for me just in my life. You know, those ones that just resonate with you so much that they make like who you are, that person. Like it's just like Final Fantasy, Metal Gear Solid, and Halo are those games for me. But Final Fantasy, the first one that I ever encountered, I didn't even play myself. It was actually my older brother. He brought it home one day, and I was like, okay, cool. We got the PlayStation now, and he's there, and I just watched him play through the whole original Final Fantasy VII. And then I was like, okay, cool. I missed some of it, but this game is so gas. Like I was crying when when the missus in that game died, innit? Like I don't want to give spoilers just in case anyone ain't played Final Fantasy VII yet. I don't know what you've been doing, but you know what's going on. Yeah, I was crying, and I just remember like it was just emotional. Just the music banged. Cloud was just a sick guy. I think what really sold me when I was younger is just when he just busts out the window on the bike on the first disc, and I was just like, "What is this game? This has changed up. This has changed up." And it was just gas from that, and then from there, like as the series went on, I played more of 8, and then you know the intro cutscene to 8. Where it's just got the music and the flowers, and Renault is in like the flower petal thing, and they're doing a sword fight. I was just like, oh my gosh, this game is so sick. And it's just like the love just continued from like there as well, like 10, 11, 12. Well, I didn't really play 12 because I don't really like that one too much.
Yeah, I ain't really played 12
even 13, like when everybody was roasting that game, I didn't like it as much, but I was still playing it. I was just like, this is a Final Fantasy game. We ain't had one in years. It ain't a good game, but I'm just gonna enjoy it. Like,
you know what? As well with 13, Lightning is so sick. So because Lightning is such a sick pro tag, it makes you get into it, even though the game's kind of dead. All right, cool. Exactly. So on September the 16th, PlayStation. I see your hoodie. Lift up your chest.
Yep. I had to rock it because I know that you're a PlayStation man there, innit?
You know, innit? So PlayStation came with the juice, and at the beginning of the conference, they announced Final Fantasy 16 as a PlayStation exclusive. So we're going to go all about this. We're going to talk about it, our feelings, our hopes, our dreams, our scares, everything what we found about this game. So what was your initial reaction when you saw the first game on the PlayStation conference?
First, super excitement, and then the second one was like, all the people that said, because we made a video about Final Fantasy 16 being announced soon beforehand, yeah, because we're like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of like things that point towards Final Fantasy 16 being announced, and in the comments when we made that video, everyone's like, nah, they just made Final Fantasy 7. There's no way there's going to be a 16. They were roasting us. I was like, oh, I'm so gassed right now. All those people that told us that were a thing, shut up, shut your mouth. You know what's good to like, yeah, see this game, and the fact that it was made by the people that we said that we're going to be making it just felt like a vindication almost. And I was just like, yes, this is what I wanted. This is sick. It's medieval. I was like, I am down for this so far. But like, I want to know what you thought really as like another Final Fantasy fan.
So initially, as soon as I saw the trailer, I was gassed because it's Final Fantasy. Like, you know, I'm a PlayStation guy, I'm a Final Fantasy guy. Like, those are the two things that come together. So one, I was like, I heard all the rumors of it dropping, but I wasn't 100% if it was going to happen. So when it was the first thing, when it was a PlayStation exclusive, I was like, wow, I love the look of the fighting in the trailer, because I personally think Final Fantasy VII Remake's got the best fighting mechanics in any Final Fantasy game.
That's facts right there.
Yeah, like the fighting mechanics in Final Fantasy VII Remake are just excellent. Like they mix like real time with a little bit of turn-based kind of strategy so well. And I always say to people that Final Fantasy 15 was really kind of a testing ground for that fighting mechanics, because it was the first time they did real time in a FF game. And like I liked it, I platinumed the game, but it was janky as hell. Like it wasn't amazing fighting mechanics. But the one thing that has taken me a while to actually get into is the setting, because the whole medieval setting for me is a weird one. Like I love Game of Thrones, like one of my favorite shows, and I love The Witcher, but then I'm not into like Skyrim, and I'm not into like Bloodborne. And
you're a man of culture. You're a man of culture now. You're spitting facts.
Yeah, so it's like there's certain things in medieval that just grab me, and there's other things that don't. But one of the things that like I've watched the trailer about 4 times, and I was really trying to think, why am I'm more excited that there's a Final Fantasy 16 more than I am excited about this Final Fantasy 16. And I think the reason why for me comes down to protagonists. Like the thing that really gasses people in FF games is they always grab you the protagonist. So Cloud, incredible. Noctis, incredible. Zidane, incredible. Tidus, sick. Even Lightning, I don't even like Final Fantasy 13, but Lightning's sick. And even down to like when Versus 13 first got released, 10 years before Final Fantasy 15 ever came out, people were so gassed about that Noctis character, they couldn't even remove him. So even they had to start the game again, they kept that character. But the protag hasn't really grabbed me. But I tell you what has really grabbed me, the thought of this game being a bit more serious, a bit more adult, and like seeing like the blood and seeing that for this game, I think it's going to be the love of the world and the lore more than the protag. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's been like, I think you and me are built the same when it comes to Final Fantasy, like being a Final Fantasy fan. So like the games that we like are kind of more this futuristic kind of meld between fantasy and kind of contemporary like worlds and all of that, and like that modern kind of setting and theme. So when we see like a back in the day one where it's like kind of got all like this medieval stuff and not necessarily got what we come to think of like a super cool character, we're like, and I think it's just because there hasn't been a good one of those games basically. So, but if you think about Final Fantasy before 7, people still think 6 is one of the best games. I've never played 6, but 6's stories just sounds sick. Like the world ending, there's some killer clown, there's just like some madness going on. So like if they can blend like that medieval style and bring that kind of story that they had in 6 up into like a full-on AAA title in the modern times, I think it's going to be one of probably the best Final Fantasy stories that we ever get, just because of the Final Fantasy is meant to be like a fantasy, a high fantasy type game with like elves and all these different like stuff that's going on in madness. So I'm super excited for it. I will say I feel the same way about you. I'm more excited that there's a new Final Fantasy game than like the setting or the protagonist or any of that. But it just could be down to the trailer. We might not know enough right now at the moment. They've only shown off like a little bit of the game. And if you really think about Final Fantasy trailers, even from when they showed off Versus 13 trailer was this Noctis sitting in the car and some mandem coming out of the castle to try and kill him. Like we didn't really know much what was going on.
It was gassy though. It was gassy.
But
do you know why it was
CG
gassy?
Trailer.
Do you know why it was gassy?
Yeah.
Because of the weapons, because it was like Advert Children. Because we just watched Advert Children so long, and
exactly.
Cloud had all of the things with the weapons, and he came down. We was like,
But I think that was a CG trailer, and they normally hit it off with a CG trailer to get you gassed. But they are bringing the fact that they've showed this game off as actual gameplay before they showed a CG trailer. They showed that it's coming soon. They mean business. This is what you're gonna get. There's gonna be big off summons coming to send punches. Shiva's gonna be in it. Like what you're getting is gonna be like a proper Final Fantasy game and what they envision. So yeah, I think we kind of need something that's completely separate from what Final Fantasy 7 is anyway. And if you're gonna kind of like slingshot franchises similar to what Call of Duty does, where it's like you get like Modern Warfare, then you get a Black Ops themed one, and then you get like an old school like Call of Duty. And if they do that with Final Fantasy, where it's like you get a medieval Final Fantasy, and then you get a Final Fantasy VII like remake version. That's like what us like. We just every time we see it, we're just gassed about it. Like I'm
And yeah, I totally agree with you because it's taken me. I've watched the trailer about 3 or 4 times to kind of break it down and kind of get my mind around it. And I feel like you're completely right. Like if this was basically another high fantasy game that was similar to the ilk of like a FF7, what would be the point of having FF7 have remake part 2 and having this? So I think they've done really well in terms of one, making sure this feels completely different from FF7 remake part 2, but then also implementing the things they learned from FF7. Like the fighting mechanics on this game looks crazy. Like I don't know if you've noticed, but like in the fighting mechanics, like each time you're fighting, it's like you're using a power of one of your summons. So like he's got the power of his summons within the real-time fighting. Like the fighting in this looks levels. It looks so levels that it's weird that you mentioned Metal Gear Solid because I love Metal Gear Solid. Now Metal Gear Solid 5 for me is sick. But I think the best thing about Metal Gear Solid is the mechanics. I think the mechanics is better than the story because there isn't much of a story there.
I'm not sure about that one, but yeah.
No, the mechanics in that game is so sick in 5. But when I think of like the old school Metal Gear Solids, it's the stories that are the best parts for me. But the mechanics in this game has really got me excited. So let's talk about 2 things. So the first thing I want to talk about is Square Enix. Now Square's changed from the Final Fantasy VII days when they were like the big boys and everyone was always rated what they did because they've had a bumpy ride. Like they've had great games like Final Fantasy X, and then they've had like games fall off since like Final Fantasy 15. It sold well, but the reaction wasn't great and people don't have the same they don't put a respect on Square's name like they used to, and I think FF7 is the first time people proper put respect back on their name. And one of the things that you mentioned, which is really important, is this trailer wasn't just a CG thing. Like they showed a lot of this trailer, a lot of gameplay, and it seems like Square's actually learned, all right, let's show something after we've worked on it for a minute, rather than, oh, we got a sick idea, let's get everyone gassed, and then show it to everyone, and then we don't see anything for 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. I think Square, like in general, the change has been dramatic because it's been up and down now, hasn't it? Like there was a whole time when around Final Fantasy 13, all they really had was like 11 out and stuff, and they weren't really making console games all that much, and it was like a hard time for like RPG fans. I think like the only good RPG that I really liked from that wasn't even a Final Fantasy game. It was legit just Lost Odyssey came out during that time, and I just loved that game, and I was like, that's what I want Square to be making. But as soon as Nier Automata came out, I feel like that's like a turning point for them because they just started banging out better console games and they just started taking more risk on their JRPGs and stuff like that. I think because, it's just what they're just building what fans are and they're earning that respect back again. I think at this point, they're nearly getting back to where they were, but they're definitely not back up where they were in the heydays, but they are releasing some bangers nowadays. So it's nice to have the company back on where it needs to be.
Cool. All right. So we're both going to give one hope and one dream for FF16. So firstly, what is your hope from what Final Fantasy 16 is going to be?
Oh, I just hope that it's going to be a good game, innit? Like, I mean, that's all I'm hoping for. Like, at the end of the day, it could come out and be dead, innit? Like, but for like mechanics and stuff, it wouldn't necessarily need to be like, they haven't shown much about like party members, and I think party members are a huge point in like Final Fantasy games. Like, if it's just going to be a single guy running around just hitting chops, that's going to be so boring for me. So I really want to see that there's like party members that you can switch between. They're cool characters, the party members that you do have. They're not like kind of just like throwaways. I think Final Fantasy 15 did quite a good job of having some of the party members that you kind of felt for. I felt like that was the best part of the game. It might have felt like a boy band like traveling around, but like at the very end, like if you got the picture, the picture does hit a heartstring if you actually completed that game when you selected a picture, because you just had such a journey with those characters that at the end of the game you're like, oh my gosh, all of this madness is just happening to them and all of that. So I just want that emotional connection with not only the main protagonist but also the party that I'm with and the characters and all of that. So yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
definitely agree with you there. Because like, it's funny, Final Fantasy 15, I platinumed it, but I didn't really like Pronto. Like, I never really clicked with him as a character. I just kind of felt like he was just being a bit of a clown. And Japan always like to have that character that's really like a bit of a clown. Like, you watch anime, JRPGs, there's always that character that's like that. But then when I played his DLC, I was like, raw, my man's gone through it. Like, and it made me look at him in a whole different way. So yeah, I completely agree with you, because like, Cloud's my favorite character from FF7, but like the connection I have with Tifa, the connection I have with Aerith, the connection I have with Barrett, the connection I now have with Jesse is like levels. So that's really important. And from what you said as well in the trailer, we've only really seen our one main pro tag fighting baddies. But also, if we think about it, we've only seen him fighting when he was young. So I'm wondering when he's younger, if he's out on his J's, and then when he gets older, because we've seen him like looking all grizzly and that, when he's older, that's when he's going to be rolling with other people.
Yeah, I think like definitely they need to focus on like doubling back and filling out the characters like backstories as well, and making them meaningful as much as possible, because I can't remember anything from like Final Fantasy 13 on their backstories. The whole story was too convoluted, and I think that's one of the main points as well. They need to have a simple but emotional story, which is kind of what is Final Fantasy 7, isn't it? It's like quite a simple story about this guy. He's got brilliant powers, and he's basically just trying to save the world from just basically getting burnt by a bad guy, essentially. Yeah. So that kind of, and then there's more complexity around who he interacts with and all of that stuff that's happening. So I definitely think that characters definitely need to be like fleshed out as much as possible.
So for me, my hope is that the pro tag is a bit more exciting. So right now, I'm not that excited about the pro tag yet, but like you said, that we haven't really seen any much interaction with him. There's not been much story scenes of him speaking, or really, it's all kind of been about the world. And I prefer the look of him when he's older than when he was younger. He looks a bit like he looks like baby's first MMO character. Yeah.
He looks like a serious guy when he's older, though, isn't it?
When he's a serious guy,
about to do bits like.
That's what I'm saying. He looks like things. So that's my first big hope, is to have a pro tag that means as much to me as it does in those other titles. Because I think the difference with JRPGs to a lot of games like a COD or something like that, like when you're playing Call of Duty, you're just there to do headshots, just lick off shots. Feel powerful, be like, yes, I'm the boss. But with JRPGs, we want to go on a journey with someone, and I want to care about that person to go on a journey. I'm the same with anime. Like, I don't even watch anime if I don't like the look of the main pro tag. If I'm not feeling the pro tag, I can't waste my time.
What's wrong with you, man? That's
fam. Do you know how long? Do you know how many years it took me to watch Bleach? Fam, I only watched Bleach like 3 years ago.
Yeah, what's his name? I forgot what his name is.
I can't even think of his name. Yeah, he looks dead, fam.
Yeah, he looks dead, didn't it?
So
like, dead. Bleach is alright. Season 1 of Bleach is alright.
Yeah, Bleach is sick. Well, he looks dead, so I had to. You get me? I had to get past that. All right. So that's your hope. What is your ultimate dream? Something they can do to make this game the game for 269.
I don't know. I legit don't know what the ultimate Final Fantasy looks like for me. Actually, at the end of the day, this game could never be the ultimate Final Fantasy for me, just because Final Fantasy 7 exists. I just don't feel like it's even a fair like comparison point. It's even like Ghost of Tsushima came out this year, and I love that game. I just thought that game was sick, but it's never going to be my game of the year because Final Fantasy 7 came out.
And I've just got such a
and just because I've got like such a nostalgia and attachment to that game, that it's just like impossible for other games to kind of even like realistically compete with it. I think the setting and the theme would have to completely change for it to be anything close to like a dream Final Fantasy for me. But I could be wrong, and I maybe be like I'm asking or saying something because I don't know what I want yet. So if I play this game and the story's just absolutely amazing and it just circumvents everything that I'm thinking, and like it is kind of like the world is ending and it's just like a story that I completely haven't seen before, then that will gas me. I think story is probably the most pivotal thing for me.
So my dream, which is not going to happen, for it to be the Game of Thrones or Final Fantasy? Like, cutthroat, playing no games. Like, you're playing, and after 2 hours, they kill the main pro tag. You're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's what I need. I need that like, circumvention, like this mind-blowing things in it.
What? Like, what do you mean? How can you kill the and then the second party member that I didn't even make that strong is now my main pro tag for the rest of the game? I'm like, man, I'll probably hate it and want to smash up my TV, but I would just love something like that I would just not expect. And I think this is the Final Fantasy for Square to do things people are not expecting. And you can see that already with the trailer. The trailer is not like a Final, like the time they've put in the trailer, seeing blood, like even the look of the summons. What are they calling them?
Icons, I think.
Yeah. Icons, yeah. Like, I feel like this is going to be something different because, like you said, we've all got FF7 remake and it means everything to us. All right, let me put you on the spot. Yeah. Doesn't have to be in order, but I need top 3 Final Fantasy games ever. Doesn't have to be in order. Top 3.
Top 3?
Yeah.
7, 8, 10.
So
that's quick.
7.
That's it.
That was quick. So 7. So 7. So I'm separating 7 and remake. So they're separate games.
No, you can't do that.
So start again.
What are you
so
doing?
They're separate games.
What are you doing?
So give me 3.
Nah, you're making this. What are you doing?
They're separate games. That was too easy,
fun.
fam. That was too easy. So they're separate games. Let's go again.
You put it that now you're putting me on the spot.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
So I think like 7 is the game that changed our life, but 7R is got the best fighting mechanics in any Final Fantasy game. Maybe I think Final Fantasy 7 remake might have the best action, like fighting in any action RPG.
Yeah, definitely. I think every game that's like an action RPG should like have that system. I don't think it needs to be changed. I think that is it basically perfected. It just needs to be like more in depth, like maybe a bit more of the animations, because even down to when they have, it just works so well, because even when they have cutscenes and the UI is on the screen and you're just having a fight, it's just mad. You're just like, what is going on? This is actually insane. But to answer your question that you're trying to chief me on, I would say 7, 8, 7 remake. Forget 10, even though 10 is like one of the best games out there.
Is...
Like, I had to throw it. I had to throw it to the side.
10, 6. Do you know what, right? I love 10. Love 10, but I hate the ending.
Yeah.
Really don't like the ending. Like, the ending for me is super poor. And one of the weakest elements on it. All right. Thank you so much for joining me, my G. Like, I couldn't have spoke to anyone about Final Fantasy but you. Like, I've been waiting for you for this. I mean, I waited to do this video from the trailer drop, but I said no, I have to wait for 2.6 because he is the man. Now, before you go, where can the people find you? What do you want them to watch? Gas up your ting, because you are the man and you do this thing.
All of our videos are on Arekkz Gaming, so Arekkz Gaming on YouTube, definitely follow that if you want guides. We'll probably have early access to like videos and games coming out in the future and stuff like that. And we always have, if there's a big game coming out, like we'll probably be playing it because we play games on all platforms. But you can catch me on Twitch right now, when twitch.tv/269, where I will be, well, I normally just play like Among Us, all the games. Among Us, we're playing Baldur's Gate because your guy's becoming more of a nerd like recently, so a little bit of D&D in there and stuff like that. Baldur's Gate, Squad, all of these games, everything.
Do you know what? Baldur's Gate 3, I was watching you lot's video. The customization on that game is mad. A D&D guy like that either, but I'm going to get into it just to try out that custom creator.
Yeah, I think more people would like it. I only recently started D&D, and I'm been getting into it a little bit more. I think if you like RPGs, you kind of like D&D. It's just too nerdy for, like, I don't know, people from London and ends in it. Like, it's just like, who's playing Dungeons and Dragons in it? We're talking about dice. So yeah.
That is mad thing. Well, thank you so much for joining me, 26. Thank you everyone for checking out the video. Now, obviously, I just didn't give you my top 3. I've got a video where I'm telling you the best Final Fantasy game ever. So go and check that out and you will get your answer. It's a 3-part video. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Make sure you hit that bell. Don't let the YouTube algorithm bully you. I've been Mr. Midas. He's been 26. You've been amazing. And in the comments below, I need to know your top 3 Final Fantasy games ever. We out.